Okay, welcome everyone. I'm happy to see such young people and also older people sitting here in such a great event. I'm very happy to be here with you all. Today we're gonna have a really interesting panel discussion. It is about the digitalized era and banking systems. I'm here today with you. My name is Delvin, and I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at Hello Future Organization, and also acting the Deputy Country Director. With me, I have Mr. Awara, who is, you can introduce yourself. I prefer this way.
Of course. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for your attendance here. And in the meantime, I would like to thank the organizers of this great initiative. These young people are doing such a great job talking about the newest technologies and bringing it to the life of every single person here. My name is Awara. I am a university lecturer at the University of Salahuddin. I teach the students of Business Administration Department, Principles of Marketing. And for the last couple of years, I have been involved in many projects in terms of digitalization and basically be in the face of many different discussions regarding the banking sector, the e-commerce, anything related to business. We've been talking about it. So I hope that we can talk about a very important subject today, and definitely will not make you boring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awara. We have Dr. Bayar. Dr. Bayar, if you can start introducing yourself.
My mic. Oh, it's working now. Very good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bayar. I am the Director of Business Development at Naswallet Digital Banking. Naswallet is one of the leading mobile money and digital banks in Iraq that provides unique services actually for this digital era in Iraq. And today we're going to have more interesting conversations about how digital banks and mobile money companies like Naswallet can enlighten and actually help us in this market.
Thank you, Dr. Bayar. And then we have Mr. Rawas, if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Delvin Khan. Is it clear? I'm Rawaz Rauf. I'm a partner at Euphrates Ventures, a venture interested in investing in growing technology startups in Kurdistan region and Iraq. My background is in the telecommunications sector, but I've also been in the business team as part of our family businesses in construction, insurance, etc. My passion is technology and what it can do. So I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can add a few new ideas out there.
Thank you and welcome to the panelists, and also again welcome to you. We're going to start our panel discussion. I don't want it to be boring and just ask questions, so I asked them to fight today, or if they have different opinions, to just say whatever they think. Although Iraq have reached the outcomes regarding their banking services and the financing, but there are still challenges. There is still this part where people doesn't trust the banking system, doesn't trust this online, let's say, services. So what are the challenges? What can we do based on their experience? And also you can later ask questions. What can we do to foster a better process for this? And yeah, we're going to start with them. Okay, so I'm going to start my first question with Dr. Bayar. So what are the main business challenges and the increasing, let's say, what are the challenges and how we can increase the trust and awareness among the Iraqi citizens? Also, what are the barriers and the difficulties? Because you have been working now with a lot of people, and Naswallet somehow you have been facing challenges also, I believe, with the trust of the citizens. So what can we do? What do you think are the best way to, what are the challenges and what can we do to face them? Yes.
there are a lot of challenges when it comes to why people are not interested or motivated to use banking services or actually smart payment services. However, when it comes to the barriers that are preventing us from increasing the trust and awareness in using smart financial methods, I would say the first one is lack of digital literacy. So we as Iraqis, we have a lack of digital literacy. We are scared. We are not sure. We don't understand the fintech solution. We don't understand. We are not sure about the security measure of these applications. Overall, we are not quite digital literate about these solutions. And the second factor is, which is something we cannot skip, is the cultural and the behavioral factors. Actually, Iraqis are a cash-based society. We love cash. All of us prefer cash actually and traditional payment methods. So this is another challenge which makes it very difficult actually to increase the trust for people to use digital financial services. And then there are other minor issues like unstable currency, the regulatory environment. For example, if you are a fintech company currently, you want to come up with a very innovative solution, you might not be able to do that because the regulator, which is Central Bank of Iraq, is not allowing you to do that. So it doesn't matter how innovative you're thinking, you have a barrier, which is Central Bank of Iraq, for example, in our case, which is actually preventing us from doing lots of things. Other reasons could be very poor digital services, especially provided by traditional banks, which are actually making people to go away and move from using financial services. Now, how we can solve these issues? I would say government, central bank, universities, companies, they need to collaborate to run joint campaigns to increase the trust actually, to talk about the benefits, the advantages of financial solutions, fintech solutions, and etc. Plus, we need to ensure people and we need to educate people as companies about the convenience, the ease of use, the advantages of mobile money companies, digital banks, fintech companies, even traditional banks. We need to educate people as companies that, guys, come, these are not scary. These things are going to help you in your life. It creates convenience, it creates ease of use, and etc. as well. So I believe this is how we can solve at least some of the issues.
Yeah, so you think that we all need to work on this to make this happen, or it is only the government side, or like it is something, it's a joint thing that everyone from its own side should be working on to raise this awareness and this information, make the people understand the benefit and so on, right?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, this could be individual efforts as well as joint efforts as well. Because see, there is something in the market competition. For example, if I have NAS wallet and my competitor is FastPay, Zencash, if we run a joint campaign, it's going to help us both. It's not going to kill us, you know? So joint ventures, even in a competition, can actually produce good results for both competitors. It doesn't mean it's something bad, actually. You can still compete and actually have mutual benefits and have more visions for the market as well.
Exactly. Thank you.
And I personally would like to ask this question, why people don't trust banks, where this started. And I think this is the million-dollar question. And my answers for this, it's due to the financial crisis that happened a couple of years ago in our region, and politically, the instability of the politics made basically that governments interfere with the banking industry, and basically they used the banking funds and they drained out the cash available in the banks, and that made a huge, let's say, fundamental issue in people not trusting banks. In my opinion, yes, I agree with Dr. Bayar that we need to let's say, financially educate our society. But in the meantime, the political stability, it's the key factor in order for people to trust banks again, to put their monies or their cash in bank accounts, and trusting that whenever they can go to the bank and have access to the funds that they own,
Definitely.
So that, I think that's the major question. The political stability, it's the major factor which will affect people to trust banks again. And that's my point of view on this.
Maybe
just
this
added
is
to
a
this.
point that we can raise to the officials and the government that is here, is that they should start working on securing somehow these issues for the people so that there is this trust. Thank you, Dr. Ara. Another question to Mr. Rawaz is based on your experience. I know you have seen a lot of countries, been through a lot, and I wanna hear from you. What are the initiatives that were made from other countries, like in the adaptation and building, this trust in the banking services? How applicable are those strategies in Iraq, and if they can be applied or not?
Sure, thank you. So first we have to understand the basis of our economy is fairly an oil-dependent economy. So the examples of countries that are not oil-dependent may not be as applicable to our context, because the reality of the situation on the ground is over 90% of the government revenues are coming from oil. The vast majority of expenses from the state budget are to employees, state benefits, etc. And actually the largest payments that are being made from the citizens are actually towards the state again. So while it might come across as boring and cliche to talk about the government all the time, the reality of our political economy is that we are very oil dependent. So it's hugely important to have all the stakeholders around the government, whether they're public servants, whether they're people that pay electricity, whether they're people that pay traffic fines, they are part of that process and they understand the importance of financial inclusion. And you asked about, what other countries have done. I mean, I don't know of many countries that distribute salaries in cash, to be honest. Whether they're oil dependent or not, it's just forbidden. It's considered illegal in most countries. So that would be like a good starting point. I don't see any POS machines at electricity departments today, while there are many solution providers. There are over 10 acquirers in Iraq licensed that you can go with a debit card or credit card to pay your electricity fee. I don't know if the cafe here accepts debit card payments, for example, right? So in Saudi, which I was recently at a few months ago, they told me that a simple act, which is probably too early for us, but today you cannot go to any retail shop and they cannot put out a cash-only sign. You have to accept digital payment. Now, the customer can pay in cash if they like to, but as a merchant, you cannot tell them, I only accept card. And that would require in your business being shut down. So these type of things would require all the stakeholders, not just the government itself. The person that is receiving salaries, the person that is making an electricity payment, the person that is selling any good from their shop, to be accepting of this reality that we can no longer have this heavy dependence on cash to grow. Because ultimately, while cash is nice and safe, it's in your pocket, it's limiting everyone else's ability to grow in the economy.
Exactly. Thank you, Kakrawaz. Mama Sa'awara, my other question to you is, how can the Central Bank of Iraq collaborate with the universities, the academic institutes to enhance the financial literacy and among the Iraqi citizens, the students and China Jawaza can using this digital financing services?
Well, first of all, let's understand what is the role of central bank in our society, or in overall the societies basically that we know. I mean, logically, the two main, let's say, functionalities of the central bank are monetary policies and fiscal policies. So the monetary policies are the amount of cash being printed and the amount of cash available in the market. As we know, right now we are going through a very, let's say, dynamic process of different, let's say, values of our currency. So the instability in the market, it's huge in terms of the value of Iraqi dinar against the US dollar. So mainly this is their job to control these sort of, let's say, issues. This is one part of their job. And the second part of their job is to identify or to set policies for governments in terms of the taxation, the interest rates. So basically their main, let's say, job, it's related to every single person available in this room or in the whole entire country. Because they deal with our finances and they deal with the country's finances. In terms of their role, how to educate or how to increase the literacy of economy of the citizens, I would like to ask a question from the audience. How many people from the audience know what is inflation? A very simple question. Raise your hand up if you know what is inflation. Halal San. So as you can see, not every single person in this room raised their hand up because it is a very boring subject. Economy is a very boring subject. I mean, I remember when I picked my major from university, I didn't go for economy because it was completely numbers and boring, let's say, equations. So their job is to make the society understand how these, let's say, simple things affect their lives in terms of interest rates, in terms of how to invest their money. That's the main reason every year we hear about stories that people are being, let's say, tricked to businesses that are not real, fake, people lose their money. We hear it on the news all the time. I'm sure there are many different names that became like the Ponzi scheme of USA. So there are names, I don't want to mention them, that basically made people lose their money and their investments were wasted. So their main, let's say, responsibility is to educate the society in terms of how to spend their money and to be financially aware how to make decisions about their lives. I mean, in general, many central banks, they have a dedicated budget and they work with different institutions, specifically institutions like universities, schools, and they have specific programs. One of the most famous programs that was introduced by 30 central banks in 1999, it was basically a program was designed for 4 different tiers of the society. Even starting from the primary school or below primary school, they had a program that students should be aware of simple money concepts. How much this costs? You know, what is the value of $1 or what's the value of 1,000 dinar of our currency? So when you educate people from this age, they will definitely become more aware of the financial decisions they will make in later their life. And the idea of Adam Smith, you know, the biggest economist of USA, it makes sense when it says if every single person take care of their finances, it will have a major effect on the country's finances. So everybody, if they are looking after their money and they're making wise investments, of course, the country will become more financially stronger in terms of how to handle crisis. So their role, it's definitely quite wide. Unfortunately, the Iraqi central bank is extremely weak in terms of programs to collaborate with universities, with schools, with academic institutions, and how to basically educate people in that term.
So these programs that you just mentioned, are they still ongoing, or it was just like years ago?
In many countries,
I mean,
they are still. In Iraq, I haven't seen. I mean, I have been in education industry for at least about 13 years, and I have never seen the central Iraqi bank approaching any university in terms of how to increase the level of economic literacy.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Something to highlight. Now, I will not repeat the role of central bank because you already mentioned. Central bank does have the roles you mentioned and much more things actually. And to be in the position of central bank, it's a very difficult job, trust me, because we are dealing with them and we are meeting the directors in central bank. The job is very tough to keep a balance between all these participants, banks, fintech solutions, and etc. Now, they have a very tough life. However, they are not perfect, I understand. Recently, I mean, this year, they started lots of collaboration with GIZ, IFC, International Finance, World Bank, and recently with GIZ under the CARP project, they are actually supporting central bank to increase the financial inclusion. And in all our meetings, central bank, I know they haven't done it quite, but they are actually highlighting the role of supporting universities. Maybe on the ground, it has not happened, but they do know the value and they highlight it. Probably universities can go and approach central bank because not necessarily all the time you need to wait for the central bank. They have millions of jobs. They have to manage international stability of the currency. They have to manage internally all these companies. We can go as universities and actually approach and propose them ideas. They may not be very open, by the way, but we can still try. I mean, it's not end of the world.
Dr. Bayar, in terms of the important job that the central bank does, but realistically, because their actions affects every single person's life, and one of their major, let's say, operational duties is to educate the society and look after people's interests. And I think, yes, there are initiatives, but it's not been at the level of satisfaction. As I mentioned to you, I have been in the educational industry for like 12 years, and I have never seen any initiative by central bank in order how to educate people. So definitely there is a lack, but and the initiatives are there. So hopefully by time these sort of issues will resolve themselves.
True.
Thank you both for your inputs. I'm gonna ask another question. So technology is like taking a big role in shaping the tomorrows of the financial services and so on. So what is exactly happening now? Because Dr. Bayar and Kakra, you are into this, and you work with startup, with different businesses, and also space. So what is exactly happening now, and what needs to be happen to enhance it, more?
Yes.
So if I may, that one. I mean, you're right. We've had a terrible 20 years, I think, at least from 2003 till 2023. There wasn't much going on in the financial services. Let's just put it like that. But personally, I think something rather interesting happened in December 2022. Now, it started a currency crisis, but the cause was not a currency crisis. The cause was a change in the system that Iraqis, whether businesses or individuals, were transferring money out. And there were new regulations that were put in place. And there were some banks that were barred from transferring money out as a part of that, let's call it, reform process. And we all saw what happened in the immediate aftermath of it. And to my opinion, it's the most significant thing that we have done, a coordinated effort between the central bank and the Iraqi state, where they both worked on financial inclusion, issuing new regulations for, I don't remember any time where people were able to get the Iraqi dinar at the central bank rate. While since December, we have debit cards, we have international transfers that you can actually do as a business at the central bank rate. And this is rather interesting. It's new for us. Before, it was always easier for people and businesses to go to Bazari Dolaraka, the Hawala market, and make a transfer. Now it's actually cheaper, better, and faster to do through the banking system. And you cannot have a situation where the unregulated market is cheaper, faster, and better than the regulated market. So I think if we look back at the last couple of months, actually there has been a rather successful attempt by the central bank and the Iraqi state to manage that process and to use that crisis as a way to actually improve the financial situation, at least on the part of the outwards transfers. Now, of course, we have many players, as you mentioned. There are many players that want to abuse that system, and the central bank has an incredibly difficult job of trying to issue regulations that keeps up with these things, but I think ultimately they've done a rather good job at managing the exchange rate. Of course, ultimately this problem will only be really fixed if people start trusting cash less and trusting banks more. I mean, and that is not just a job by the central bank. That would require multi-stakeholder engagement. That would require a lot of the players, including people that are not necessarily in the financial sector, to be actually supportive of that sector.
Thank you. Dr. Bear, if you want to add to it.
Yeah, I mean, the initiative that Kak Rawaz mentioned as well started actually December, he's quite right. And starting from this month, June, this would be implemented in the federal Iraq, not necessarily in KRI, by the way. They will not issue business licenses for shops and merchants if they are not installing a POS machine. This is a very good news and initiative, which I believe would apply in the federal Iraqi regions, not in KRI at the moment, hopefully in KRI as well, because we have different registration systems and procedures. Now, in terms of what is happening now, there are lots of changes, which Kak Rawaz has mentioned, some of them as well. Currently, we are seeing traditional banks are actually investing in their digital infrastructure, which is something very big for Iraq, guys. Traditional bank is actually investing and trying to digitalize its infrastructure. And on top of that, we have seen very interesting partnerships. Just recently, a few months ago, we've seen Ariba partnered as a fintech company, partnered with Al-Taif Bank. We've seen Amwal partnered with Ashur. We've seen Rafidain Bank partnered with, I don't quite remember, but Rafidain, I think, partnered with Switch, yes. So fintech companies and traditional banks are actually partnering, which is one of the success rates of how we can move to a digital financial services, actually. This is what's happening now, and it's very positive. Central Bank is doing an amazing job. The Council of Ministers, especially in the federal Iraq, is actually pushing it to the maximum. There are lots of bad stuff as well, Kagawara. Lots of things which are pushing us back, but it's still somehow positive. Now we need to invest more in the digital infrastructure, especially the traditional banks. They need to update themselves. They need to upgrade themselves. And all of us together, stakeholders, government, companies, we need to embrace the fintech into our financial services as well. We need to encourage more collaboration between fintech companies, like we mentioned, and traditional banks to come up with amazing, innovative solution, which will ultimately increase the trust and awareness for the citizens as well.
Yeah, that's completely true. A funny story about that. A bit of time ago, when there was, this crisis of the money and everything. So there was a friend of mine. He was like, "I have $2,000 in the bank. I should take it out and run, take them out because they might be stuck." And then I was like, we have a lot of business owners, like, for example, companies, travel companies and so on, which they have a lot of money inside the bank and they are not taking out. Why are you scared about this little amount of money? It's just a matter of time, I feel like, because I feel positive about the fact I see a lot of young people now, they all have cards, they shop online, they use it when they try to, even for gaming, for buying things. So it's a good start. I believe that we will reach that point where we want to reach very, very soon, hopefully. As we were in the fintech thing, and so let me ask a question to Kak Rawaz. So as an investor, expert in tech and so on, what are the key factors that contribute in the success of the fintech startups? And what type of investment and support is needed to foster this activity of fintech ecosystem in the country?
Yeah, so I think in the last 20 years, there has been a lot of work in the financial sector on the, let's call it the deposit side, whereby people put in money in a bank and they have a deposit. So government has worked quite a lot, especially the government in Iraq, to put in salaries in bank accounts, etc. And that area, I think, is fairly established in a way. The part that is not very well established is on the other side, which is the credit side. because ultimately people want to lend, to buy a house, to buy a car, to start a business, etc. And today, unfortunately, it's really, really hard to get access to finance in Iraq. I mean, the barriers are just, if you look at not any startup, but any business, whether you want to have a car on loan, a house on loan, etc., the barriers are really, really high. So we think that that is an area that is kind of new but neglected. There can be lots of very interesting ideas to target that segment, to bring it back to the digital fold. And there are a lot of experiences from regional countries that have done this successfully, countries that are as cash intensive as we are. But we have to also not forget that the 51% rule that currently exists on ownership of Iraqi companies is a real barrier for large international or regional investors to come and invest in these companies in Iraq. So in my opinion, that rule, because it's not part of any other comprehensive strategy, really needs to be removed. There is no basis for the 51% foreign ownership rule, which was passed in 2019 or in Iraq, to be there anymore. If we want to move on to the next phase, we need to have regional players to contribute to this. We need to have regional investors to include into this, and local investors and local players to participate in this area. Now, just on one point on, probably not for the central bank, but in general, and this happened also in the telecom sector at the early days, whereby we had a lot of what was like silos, Korak customers could only talk to Korak, Asiacell customers could only talk to Asiacell, Zain customers could only talk to Zain, and there were either very high interconnection fees or no connection between them. And I think today we are in a kind of similar situation in the banking sector, whereby the players in the market either don't trust each other, or they don't settle with each other, or the fees to transfer between one IBAN to another are not clear. So this is an area that needs a lot of work and improvement on the transparency of the fees, and maybe the central bank or any other institution should at least have some form of consultation to make sure that the players look at each other and say, okay, how can we actually talk to each other more? And you can elaborate on that if that's something that you
to add on, actually, because that does exist actually. Central bank currently has quite some years ago has a national switch, something called IPRSI. Very boring technical word, but we can call it national switch, and it's actually functional and working. Currently, regardless of your card issued from which of the banks, if you go to any of the Iraqi banks, the fee to withdraw money is fixed. This has been set in the national switch system, actually. And just recently, starting from last year, most of the Iraqi billers, especially in the Iraqi government, like electricity bill, water bill, are actually connected to the national switch as well. So people can pay using any bank in the federal Iraq for electricity currently. And for example, in the case of mobile money currently, before Zaincash and Asia Hawala, which is called Asia Pay now, they used to actually transfer money between each other. And now at Nas Wallet, we are testing it with Asia Hawala. So this is actually at the very last level, Kakroas. We even have passed the consultation stage. Even the billing side is almost completing. So it's actually an amazing system.
Yeah. In the telecom sector, we had a similar situation. We had no technical barriers for this not happening. What was happening was commercial barriers. And what I was referring to was the transparency of the fees to the user. So for example, if I have an IBAN from bank A and you have an IBAN from bank B, if you just give me your IBAN, if I go on my app and transfer it to you, I should immediately know how much is the amount, when is the settlement duration, how much is it going to cost prior to starting the process. And this is going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of collaboration between the banks. I doubt a lot of people don't know their IBAN numbers, unfortunately. And that is part of it's at the core of that issue. which is that people don't know their IBANs, their banks are not being very transparent about it either. And it's created this situation where every bank tries to have as many customers for themselves without growing the overall pool. This is not just one bank I'm talking about the consultation. I was talking about the entire ecosystem that needs to happen. So that is, in my opinion, something that could be required in a couple of years, maybe 1 or 2. It may be needed just to make sure that fintech solutions can say, if you have an Iraqi bank account, I can take money from you, wherever it is, whatever it is. The other thing is, and this is hugely, hugely important, and that is if you're a beneficiary, so if you're an employee of the government, if you're receiving some form of money, the government should not force you to use a specific bank. I mean, if we are having a trust system, a problem in the trust, maybe I trust bank A, but I don't trust bank B. And if the government forces me to use the bank that I don't trust, then of course I'm going to go and immediately withdraw it. So it's a fundamental right, in my opinion, that people can choose their own bank accounts regardless of what service they're trying to use. And that would encourage investors to invest in innovative solutions, in innovative companies, move away from traditional banks and move towards more neobanks, because now they can see that clients, employees, etc., can move between one bank to another rather seamlessly.
It's morally and ethically correct as well, not just to depend on one bank as a government.
Yeah. I mean, I have both of them are the fintech guys and they are fanatic about fintech. I am personally a very good fan of technology and digitalization. But I think there is a...
Fintech is digitalization as well.
Well, of course. Yes. Fundamentally, I think it's a process.
Yeah.
I think the society that we are living in, we are not very familiar with the banking industry ourselves. So rather alone, we are talking about digitalization. So I think it was most important for the government to take steps, especially the initiative you are talking about, the My Account, which was recently announced by the Prime Minister. It's a great initiative in order to start up this roller coaster. It will start. I will assure you, within 3 to 5 years, every single person in this room will have a bank card in their pockets. So this is a revolution. It's coming, and whether you are ready or not ready. But I think I think it was a little bit too soon for fintech companies to start this roller coaster. We should have let people to familiarize themselves with the banking and on how to handle the financial, let's say, transactions in their personal lives. And the government has definitely the huge responsibility in terms of how to start this, especially the transactions that basically we are conducting with the government as a public person, as a let's say, as a person, in terms of how to pay my bills, I think it should have started step by step, but I think we are a little bit overwhelmed ourselves and our society in terms of going straight to the...
No, I believe we are too late, actually. I don't think it's early. I think it's too late. And we started too late as well. But what's preventing us, Iraqis, not doing that? We all use internet. We all have mobile phone access. We are all educated, most of us at least. The ones working in public and private sector. We know about technology. So what's preventing us not to start?
I mean, in terms of... I will explain this in a manner of my speciality.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt you. If the government is not pushing, it will not happen in 100 years.
No, of course. Of course, I totally agree with you. But the issue of trust, the kicking the tire syndrome in terms of marketing, many people were against the e-commerce when the internet started and transferring business from, let's say, a brick and mortar go to the internet. That was a huge challenge for companies to overtake because of the issue of trust. So financial transactions are extremely, let's say, sensitive decisions about our personal life. So it will be extremely difficult for people to trust a fintech company as your friend to transfer all their funds to there when there is no physical place or physical bank to go to. So I think people should have familiarized themselves with the financial decisions in terms of the normal banking sector, and then moving on to the fintech. It would have major effect in terms of the financial inclusion and everybody moving to the...
Mr. Awar, if I might add to what you just said, because I feel like there is different points of view because each one is working in a different sector. and that's what I wanted to see today, somehow a debate. But if I may tackle one point, like in what terms, like the financial inclusion would be, we can take steps to do it, to be able to like reach these vulnerable people, like populations that doesn't have, education background or literacy, or let's say low income people, what we can do to enhance, or let's say take this step, because you are saying that it was soon and people needs to be educated. So what steps should have been done to reach this, or to be able to, so that everyone can benefit from the financial services?
I mean, it's a great question. The first guy who invented a chair, he did something great for the society, for the whole entire human beings, because now we have something that we can comfortably sit on. But after this, many people came and added different features to the same chair, but the fundamental is not changed. So I think there is nothing wrong with copying other people, especially if they were successful in that manner. We should definitely look to these sort of examples. I mean, the last couple of days when I was researching about this subject, I saw the transformation of India as a society in terms of how to eliminate the financial inclusions. They've done something extremely great. Now, majority of their population, they do hold bank accounts, and they started initiatives by providing these sort of services for low-income families with the low entry barriers. I mean, right now, yes, we have different banks providing different services at a very low cost. But 5 years ago, it was very costly for a person to go and open a bank account. It was very costly for people to go and have a simple credit card.
How is this done in India? If you could give us,
so they did this by different stages. So they started with different initiatives, especially in terms of, let's say, opening bank accounts, in terms of the facilitating how making the process so easy for people to set up a bank account, in terms of bureaucracies, all the documentations you require. I mean, there are some fintech companies available in this room and here. Yes, opening bank accounts has become so much easier than previously. But again, banks can actually make this process even more easy in terms of how to create bank accounts. Supporting, let's say, small businesses in terms of overdrafts, in terms of facilities, in terms of how they can accommodate these sort of services and incorporate it with their own initiatives. That was something else as well that India, they carried out. And it's a process. But of course, different parties and different governments and banks, they have to collaborate with each other, and they have to make this great. I mean, one of the things that I would suggest is basically, again, using universities, because they are a segment in the market, they already understand this concept. And that's the first thing good about universities. The second thing, they come from a different geographical locations. So, for example, at University of Salahuddin, at my department, I have students come from Shaklawa, I have students come from, let's say, Germian. So, implementing any new idea, it will be extremely easy through this channel, because you have the whole entire sample of a nation in the same location. So I think it's extremely important for banks to introduce really good financial, let's say, solutions for students. Start from there, because the students will understand and they will actually take this back to their families. And it's like a viral thing. It will definitely, people will catch up. So these initiatives can be, let's say...
Yeah. Thank you, Maustawara. You want to add something?
Yeah. Actually, just on the example of India, I think, they're a huge country with many ethnicities, many languages, many different literacy levels too. But what they've done, which I think is something of an odd case, is something called the India Stack. So they've created this system whereby every bank knows how much everyone else in the country owes to every other bank, for example. So there is a proper credit scoring system in the country. There is a proper identity system in the country. There is an extremely efficient and cheap. I mean, I was meeting someone last month in a conference called Seamless, and he said Nowadays, it's very, very normal to go and buy some tomatoes in a shop for 10 rupees. And 10 rupees is like 2 cents. And he said, we just pay by digitally. We don't even pay 2 cents by cash anymore, So if the transaction cost is high, then obviously 2 cents would not cover anything, right? While if you have a lot of players in the system and you have a digital system that actually is cost effective, that is resilient, that is modern, you can have incredible amounts of transactions at a very, very cost effective price. So ultimately, you need to have very large volumes to be able to do this. And in the Iraqi context, we need to have large volumes for these things to work. With small volumes of, with the current small volumes, let's call it, that is just not going to happen. So we need significant improvement in not just the technology side, but also on the awareness side and from the larger population, because Iraq is a democracy. We need to have the political will for the wider population to want to do this to happen before it can happen. Because if people say, I'm not going to pay like this, it's not going to happen. So it is important to have awareness, because the awareness factor is very important to create the political will to change the country. I don't think Iraqis or Kurdistanis are in principle against the banking sector. I think they just don't understand it properly, or they don't see what's in it for them. So if people are more included and told, why is it a good financial system useful for them, then they would be more than happy to make this transition from a cash-based economy to a less cash-dependent economy.
Let's see.
Which is just to add on the gentleman words. I mean, now we're looking at the puzzle, but which is the price and the tech as well, but we're missing the most important part, which is the added value as well. We as Iraqis, we are thirsty. We are eager to the added values that fintech companies can add to our life. I remember back in years 2018, when we started Naspay company. As a product, it was the same product sold in the market, same as any other competitor. But what we did, we added value to the lives of people. What people have been missing, which was the customer service. We made sure we have 3 languages, multi-language customer service 24/7. The best quality, best-in-class customer service. No one should go back and be sad not to have the issue solved. So that's how we solved more than any banks in Iraq, actually, when we started Naspay. So the price is a very important element. The technology is important, but they are not the final elements, actually. The added value, what user journey you're going to add to the people's life, how you're going to change their life, what added value will provide. This is actually a game changer, I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bear. Actually, I want to ask more questions regarding the points that you have mentioned. So how can the government and the regulatory bodies work and collaborate with the banking institutions and the fintech companies to work on this regulatory the framework to ensure that the security and the protection of the customer's financial data and the digital bank, in the digital banking era, so that it's somehow more secure for everyone, so that people can trust it in a way. What do you think should be done for them?
I mean, the steps are standard steps. I don't have something new to invent. We need to have a national data protection and privacy policy, just like every other country they have it. I mean, in Europe, they have GDPR. Simply, we don't have a national data protection and privacy policy, not for banking sector, for any sector, actually. There is nothing unified and national. And then we need to embrace the industry standards. For example, the security measures which are internationally recognized for banking sector are PCI DSS, PA DSS. There is ISO 27001. There are other ISOs as well, which fortunately now central bank has forced all the payment service provider to have PCI DSS, regardless what type of financial company they are, which is very good.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the auditing is very important topic as well. Again, there is a step there has been a step from central bank, which has forced all the payment service providers to actually contract with one of the big fours, KPMG, PwC, or EY, to actually contract with them, and they would be external auditors, and then they will provide central bank with a report finally. So, which is very important and necessary for the data protection of the end users, let's say. On top of that, we as individuals, all of us, we need to educate ourselves about data protection, security measures. As a client, we need to understand what we are dealing with. So data protection, data privacy is something we should all be interested in, to actually read about it and to be aware about it as well.
Thank you.
I think in terms of data protection and safety, in Kurdistan and Iraq, actually we're blessed that we didn't go. Today, when we're starting this, let's call it the beginnings of a financial revolution, what we're starting with is we're starting with all the knowledge and experience of the world, with the smartphones being there for the last 15 to 16 years. So a bank that is being established today will in no way look like a bank that was established 30 years ago and 20 years ago. So we do not have a lot of legacy systems in Iraq. So in a way, we're blessed because any new bank, any bank that starts today in Iraq is going to have to go digital. It's going to have to authenticate based on mobile transaction, based on SMS, based on facial recognition, based on all the best practices that the world has come to. People are not going to write checks in Iraq. They're not going to have a lot of signatures to authenticate transactions. There is not going to be cases of, catch me if you can kind of situations like there was in the 60s in Iraq, because that system is, the world has moved past it. And today in Iraq, when we're starting with the financial services, I would compare it to starting with, we never had really any landlines in Iraq. When we wanted to communicate with each other, very few had landlines, but when the revolution started, everyone had a mobile phone and a SIM card. So in the banking sector, I think it's going to be the same. Not many people will have a traditional bank account with the daftar check and whatnot. People will actually, most likely, they're going to move towards neobank. They will open up their account online. They will do their KYC online. They will receive their card via mailbox. They are not going to expect a bank statement every month to be going to their door. They will look at their digital statement as they expect of any digital bank. So in a way, we are because we're starting now, we don't have to deal with all the legacy problems that existed in the banking sector and the financial sector for the last 100 years or the last 50 years. So because we're starting new. So in a way, I think we're in a slightly better situation. And the risk of financial fraud, except social engineering and the literacy that is related to, people not knowing how to deal with these things as a first time, I think we're actually at a better starting point as Kurdistan and Iraq.
Exactly.
You're not going to like this because you would like to have conflict between us, but I totally agree with you guys. I mean, one of the advantages of the fintech companies or digital banks is the issue of identity theft. It's a major issue. I mean, I have a previous experience of living abroad, and I know many different countries actually, they do occur a lot of losses in terms of banks and these institutes, basically because of the identity theft. Of course, the measures being taken by digital banks, it's far more accurate in terms of facial recognition. I mean, I went through the process of opening most of the, let's say, the financial digital banks available in Iraq. I mean, just to mention their name, I mean, I recently opened an account from FIB, and the process was extremely easy. It was very accurate in terms of the facial recognition and all this. And that will basically give a great level of trust to the customers that their identity is not going to be theft, or their accounts are not going to be created under their name, and their money is not going to be wasted. So I think this is one of the sides that I agree with you. The fintech companies, they will have an advantage over the traditional banks.
Yeah, exactly.
Kawara, there is something which we need to be aware as let's say, fintech companies. The more you are digitalized and innovative, the more you are exposed to the risks of cybersecurity, actually.
Of course, yes.
So this is something we need to invest in it. It doesn't mean if we are innovative and more digital, we are much likely less to be exposed to attacks. No, we are more likely actually exposed to attacks because we are more digital and innovative, and there are going to be more ways to actually penetrate our security.
Right now, we are dealing with the issue of how to educate people to open up bank accounts, then the issue of security, and then later, when we give people credit cards, then you have to educate them how to not spend the bank's money and be overdrawn. And so these issues definitely will occur in future. So I think definitely, yes.
It's the normal flow of the things, and it should be going this way. Thank you. My last question, Dr. Bear. So in the context of the digitalized banking systems, we frequently come across discussions regarding the financial resources for youth entrepreneurs and SMEs. So from a policy perspective, do the challenges lie primarily in the security of the finance and the accessibility are available, or how is the combination? Is it both? What is the main challenge?
I mean, when it comes to financing startups, SMEs, and entrepreneurs, I would say it's a combination of lack of finance and restricted access of finance as well. Okay.
Bad timing.
Seems something funny is going on, you know?
Yeah.
But the major issue is because financing is usually provided by major banks, which have big capitals, not by fintech companies, and the banks in Iraq lending money or financing project. It's not part of their it's not part of their added value services. They don't care about it. This is something. Let's put it on one side. Now, when it comes to limited access of financing, even if someone is eligible to get finance, there are lots of requirements. The collateral amount is something killing for the startups and SMEs, which they would never be able to provide it. The credit history, Kagra was mentioned, it doesn't exist at all, I believe, because you don't have a national credit system and you're not a bank customer, so you don't have any credit. So you cannot get any financing as well. And there are very nice solutions actually how to solve this. I mean, the typical solution is central bank can actually issue instructions to the banks and fintech companies to support startups and SMEs. To force them somehow, to support them in different ways. For example, reduce the interest rate and etc. I don't want to get into the details. Then other solutions which are more practical, banks without central bank, banks and fintech companies can partner with VCs, for example. They can partner with the VCs like Euphrates. They can partner with incubators, with accelerators to finance projects. And finally, this would be a revenue source for the bank as well.
Exactly.
And the ultimate solution for me is, I hope you're not going to be upset, Kagra, is to have a venture studio, not a venture capital. If the bank is acting as a venture studio to provide financing, resources, to help in running the operation for the startup, this startup may end up actually being successful, and it will generate crazy revenue for the bank as well. So it can be another revenue generating channel for the banks as well.
Thank you so much. Do you want to add, Mr. Rawat?
Well, I mean, I'd be happy if there is anyone that attempts a venture studio. I think it's an idea that would work. I think that's brilliant. But we cannot ignore the fact that access to finance in Iraq today is incredibly hard. And it is hard for many reasons. Part of it is historic. The country's been through war, instability, etc. But also, let's not forget that we also have a lot of rules that need to be removed. We have a lot of old regulations that are no longer fit for purpose that need to be removed. And also, we may need to come up with new regulations that need to work for the newer economy. I mean, one of the companies that we've invested, IQ Cars, I mean, the founder has been thinking about auto finance for at least a year and a half. We still haven't figured out yet how you can pledge a car once you give it out on an auto finance. On property side, there is a rule in KRG. If you pledge your house, the government takes 2.5% on the loan amount as the loan registration fee. Now, if you put 2.5 for pledging the house, add 2.5 on removing the pledge, that's 5% of the loan amount. So you already start with 95% of the money, and you still haven't done your project. This is really, really difficult for any startup. It's very difficult for any bank to actually go around these rules, because ultimately, when a bank gives you a loan for a car, they want to be able to collect the car from you if you don't repay. They do not want to have a fight with you. They want to have a legal, clear process where they can just take this car back from you and they can sell it out in the market, and they can do it in a transparent way, and that this process is very clear for all the stakeholders. These type of systems need to be created. They need to be updated, and also the systems that are no longer working need to be removed.
Thank you, Mr. Abbas. Mausta Awara, if you want to add final words.
As an individual, I am extremely excited to see such initiatives, and I really hope that government bodies and government, let's say, departments to take this matter seriously. And I think the potential is definitely there. We have, as a region, as a very small region, in a very, let's say, dangerous geographical political area, we have survived extremely well. We have done extremely well in many different industries like real estate. I am sure with the help of such young people and creative people in our society, we will definitely get there. And I'm optimistic about the steps that we are taking toward these sort of transformations. So I'm definitely positive about this, and I cannot wait to be the same as other people around the world, to use these sort of services and to have them at my, let's say, access, so that I can sell my products to a person in Basra and open up this huge, let's say, business with the international community. So definitely, guys, well done for the work you are doing, and we cannot wait to see your services. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Awara. Thank you, Dr. Bayar. And thank you, Mr. Rawas, for all of your inputs and insightful comments. I want to hear from the audience if you guys have a question. Yes, the guy there. Can you please introduce yourself, just your name, and tell us to who you are directing your question?
Okay. My name is Salah. I'm a master's student at the University of Kurdistan, business department. I have a question regarding to money laundering. I don't know if that's a topic in your content.
Money laundering.
So how does the like a digitalized area of banking services stop money laundering? Like, or which form of money laundering is going to be considered in the digitalized area? As for any of you that can answer.
You want to answer, Dr. Bayad? I think it's working.
It's working?
Yes. But the noise is a bit high.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So if I understood very well, how can fintech companies stop money laundering, right? Good. It's not only fintech company now. By this central bank rule, now every bank, financial institution should have something called anti-money laundering system. It's a software. Now I'll talk about the manual side, what's going to happen as well. It's a software which is actually used for anti-money laundering and CFT, counter-terrorism as well, which is currently being installed in every bank and fintech company, which will prevent money laundering, which will have scenarios, use cases, daily limits, monthly limits, different scenarios, how to prevent money laundering, It's a very smart system. Some of them, they are even integrated to AI systems. Now, this is happening on the software side. On the operation side, every single fintech and bank in Iraq have a department called AML department. And they have a compliance department as well, which daily they take care of all these things individually for every single transaction and for every single customer as well.
Thank you. Who else? Yes. Wakram.
Sorry, my last question. Does the system include the internal flows and the international flows as well?
There is the international blacklist, OFAC, FATCA, all the UN blacklist, and there is the Central Bank of Iraq blacklist as well.
Thank you. If we can have the mic here, please.
Where? What is the question?
Thank you very much for the great panel. So actually I had one input.
If you can raise your voice because...
Yeah. So I had one input regarding the discussion that you have made. You forgot one point, which is I see it major when they say it's always a need that drives the desire of any human to use any sort of services. So if you see that, currently if government is forcing all their employees to receive salary through banks or the fintech companies, and there is a way of acceptance channel to accept only digital money, then people by default, they will search and look after their wealth because it's crucial for them. It will increase the penetration too much that everybody is by default forced to use such financial services and be the same level of international market. If we look, closely into one of the scenarios that is happening already, which is Africa. If you check the education level of Africa compared to Middle East is very low, but still the fintech solution out there is very successful. So I believe the same scenario if applied in a region like Middle East, especially Iraq, it will be very successful.
Thank you. Do you want to answer to his comment or you want to add?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the question properly, so...
He had a comment, actually. It was a comment, so it wasn't a question, but I asked if you want to add something to what he mentioned. Thank you. Questions? Is it a question? Yes? Okay.
Please, that's as tall as a psychic.
Hello, my name is Shara. Actually, my question is it's a technical question, mostly it's regarding cybersecurity attacks. When it comes to someone face, for example, an attack, who's going to be compensated? Special discussion maybe for fintech companies. Who's going to compensate these people? And when it comes to the rules and regulation, I don't think so. It's
we couldn't hear very well. So if you can just raise your voice and also close the mic, please.
Yeah.
Closer.
How is that? Is good?
Yes. What is the question? Sorry.
The question is regarding. It's a technical question regarding a cybersecurity attacks. When it comes to, for example, somebody it's identity theft or maybe it's a fraudulent transaction. Okay. Who's going to compensate this individual? Because I don't think so. The rules and regulation in the Kurdistan right now, in Iraq in general, it's not ready for these kind of situations. This is a question because I personally face this issue. After 2 days, they waste my time. Then there was not any compensation in place. After 4 months, they get back to me. We cannot do anything for you. I personally had this issue in the past. This is a question.
Thank you. You want to answer?
So the question is about identity theft. What happens in case of an identity theft? Which is the organization that takes care of it?
So
going to compensate the...
For example, if your money is stolen or lost, who's going to compensate it? Okay, so usually when you complain to a bank or to financial institution, they will investigate. And if they decide that the issue is happening because of a user journey, you as a user, for example, you were not correctly utilizing this service. For example, you had a MasterCard, a Visa card. You went to one of the shops. The guy was copying the numbers of your card from the machine, then it's totally your own responsibility. The bank or the financial institution is not responsible. You need, as a user, to be educated and aware of the fraud methods used by scammers. Now, this is from our side. Let's put it on one side. There is another scenario is, if, let's say, you have an NAS wallet account and your money been lost for any reason, and as NAS wallet, I'm responsible. If I didn't give you back this money and you had all the documents, you can call Central Bank of Iraq, you can email them and complain on NAS wallet, because NAS wallet and all the banks and fintech companies, they have a collateral amount as a deposit inside the central bank. Even NAS wallet cannot touch it. So central bank can actually deduct from this money and give it directly back to the customer. If central bank saw the customer is right and the company is actually rejecting to pay back the money. Now, these stuff are very critical. It needs to be dealt with case by case, because every case is different when it comes to card stolen, wallet being hacked, and etc. So we cannot have a general answer actually at this moment.
Is the process easy to,
It's not easy.
complain and it takes a lot?
It depends on the case. For example, if your money in the card is actually lost and you're complaining, and then a company should raise it to Visa and MasterCard. And Visa and MasterCard, they will usually reply in 2 months, 3 months. Depends on the case, but the case of money is stolen actually. And in most of the cases, they will not give you back the money, Visa and Master.
Thank you. We will take one last question from, yes.
الو زحمه نبیتم پرسیارەکە بە کوردی دەکەم و زمانی خۆشم کوردیە.
باش.
پرسیارەکەی من ئەوەیەتین بۆچی کارتەکانی ئەلکترۆنی ناتوانن سپۆنسەری پەیپاڵ بکەن. ئەو پرسیاری یەکەمم. پرسیاری دووەمم بۆچی کارتە ئەلکترۆنیەکان هیچ تەحویلێکیان لە بینی یەکتر نییە. هیوادارم بە زمانی کوردی جواب بدرێتەوە. سوپاس.
بەڵێ کاکڕەوەز جوابیاتەوە چەنە لە بابەتەکەمانە تۆزێ باسی ئەوەمان کرد کە ئەو کۆنێکشنە نییە لە بینی بانقەکانە. کاکڕەوەز چەند نمونەیەکی جوانیشی هێنا بۆمان بەس ئەتوانی زیاتر وەڵامی بیتەوە کاکڕەوەز.
بەڕاستی خۆمیی لەوانەیە کە لەسەر و بابەتە شتم زۆر نووسیوە. یعنی ئێمە دیارەوە زیاتر پەیوەندی ئەتوانین بڵێین بە کوردستان و بە عێراقەوە نییە، بەڵکو و بە چۆنێتی سێرکردنی ئەوانە زیاتر بۆ کوردستانە بۆ عێراق. یعنی نمونەی زۆرمان هەیە لە کۆمپانیا نێودەوڵەتیەکان. وەبسایت هەیە بۆ فریلانسەرەکان، ئەپوەرک، فایڤەر، freelancer.com، هیچی لە عێراقیش ناکە. چەندەها وەبسایت هەیە کە Airbnb مەسەلا ناتوانی شوقەی لەسەردانی، بەڵام ناتوانی پارەکە لە بانک ئەکاونتەکەت وەرگریت ئەگەر عێراقی بیت. چەندین وەبسایتی تر هەیە کە ناتوانی بەکاری بێنی بۆ سپۆنسەرکردن. وەبزان تا ئێستش سناپچات ناتوانێت پارە لە سپۆنسەری عێراقی وەرگێ بە شەرتێک گەورەترین یوزەر بیسیان لە عێراقایە. دیارە ئەمانە هەمووی کێشەی چەندین ساڵن، پەیوەندی بە یەک ڕۆژ و دوو ڕۆژەوە نییە، بەڵام دیارە ئەوانیش پێویستیان بەوەیە کە لایەنی ناوخۆیی هەبێ کە متمانەیان پێ بکەن بۆ بتوانن کاریان لەگەڵا بکەن و بە پێشکەوتنی بڵین فاینانشل ئینکلوژن لە کوردستان و لە عێراقا ئەو بابەتە بەرەبەرە کاڵە بێتەوە. بەڵام ئەمە مانایەوە نییە کە ئەوانیش مافی ئەومان یەکلەیان لێ بکەن. بەڕاستی ینی نە کوردستان و نە عێراق ئەو وەزع خراپە نییە کە بڵێ بە هیچ جۆرێک هیچ جۆرە معاملەیەکی لەگەڵا نەکرێ بە وەکو بڵێن بە هەموو دەوڵەتەکە. عێراق نە لەژێر هیچ ئابوووریەکی نەک لەژێر هیچ گەمارویەکی دارایی گەورەیە، چەند مؤسسەیەکی محدد هەیە لە عێراقا کە حالیاندام کاویش جەنابەت باست کرد. بەڵام ئەمان بەداخەوە یعنی لەبەرەوەی کە دیارە سێ بابەت هەیە ئەوان باسەکەن. یەکەمیان ئەڵێن ڕێگولیشنی بانقی مرکزی لە بابەتی پەیمەنت سەرویس پرۆڤایدەر واضح نییە یاخود زۆر قورسە. دووەمیان ئەڵێن پێداویستی بازار هەز ناکەین، هێندە گەورەیە کە ئێمە بین ئینڤێستکەین لەسەر ئەم بابەتە. سێمی نیشانەوەیە کە وا هەست دەکەن کە زۆر جار گەمارۆ هەیە لەسەر عێراق یاخود گەمارۆ هەیە لەسەر هەندێ بابەتی زۆر بڵاو لەسەر عێراقا، بۆیە پێیان باشترە کە هەر ئیژ نەکەن لە عێراقا. بەڵام بەداخۆیانی کە هەندێک جار سیریان کێشاناکەی کێشەکان زۆر بەسیتن. ینی لەو ڕۆژانە من یەکێک لە وەبسایتەکان پەیۆنێری ناوە چون گلیم لێکردن وتمی و بۆ بەڕاستی عراقتان وای هێمان کردووە ینی وەبسایتە بەدافەوە ینی کێشەکان ئەوەنە بەسیط بوو SMS دلیبەر نابێت لە عراقا ینی ئیتر تەواو ینی هیچتر نییە لەوە شتێکی ئەوە قورستنی یوزەرەکە لەوە تێناپەڕێت ئیتر نە ئەتوانێت ئایدەکەی بنێرێ نە ئەتوانێت ئەکاونتەکە بکاتەوە نە ئەو هەر نایبینێت کە تۆ ئەسڵان هەوڵتداوە لە عراقەوە ئەم کارە بکەیت چونکە نامەی ئۆتیپیەکەت پێ نەگەیشتووە لەبەرەوە من بە جەراب دەڵێم و بە هەموو ئەوانەی کە لەگەڵم کۆمپانیای نایژەکەن لەگەڵ خۆیان ناباسیکەن پێیان بڵێم بڵە بۆچی ناکەن چ کێشەیەکتان هەیە لەگەڵ منە وەکو یوزەرێک کە ناتوانێت کارە بکەم باشترینشت بەڕای من ئەوەیە کە ئێمە بتوانین ینی هەوڵ بین لەگەڵ کۆمپانیەکان خۆیانە کە بیان هێنە ناو عراقەوە و بەشکم ئەو حاڵەتە تۆزە کەمتر بێتەوە
زۆر سپاس کاکڕەوەس بڵێ
ئەلۆ بۆرە سیاری دووەمم ئەمن نەریمان بارەم گرافیک دیزاینەرم لە سۆشال میدیایش دەکەم و کێشەی من ئەو ئۆنلاینەیە بانکە ئەلکترۆنیە پرسیاری دووەم ئەوە بوو خۆ بانکە ناوەخۆییەکان ناوەخۆکان یعنی ئێستا کە پاسبەی لەگەر بانکی عێراقی هیچ ئەوەک نییە بتوانین پارە تەحویلکەین لە بەینیان هۆکاری ئەمە چییە؟
پێشتریش باسمان کرد لە مناقەشەکەی لەگەڵ کاگراوەزیش تۆزێکمان باس کرد حالیان بانکی مرکزی سیستەمێکی هەیە پێی دەڵێن ناشنال سویچی مرکزی تەمام ڤژنی ینی هیوا و ئاواتی بانکی مرکزی ئەوەیە کە لە داهاتوەشی نزیکدا ئینشاءڵڵا ئەو بانکانە لەگەڵ کۆمپانیاکانی فینتێک هەمووی بەیەکەوە ببەستێتەوە بۆ نمونە جەنابەت حسابی ناسواڵێتت هەیە حساب پێیت هەیە لەناو حسابی ناسواڵێت و فاسپەیەکەت ئەتوانی پارە بۆ هەر بانکێک بنێری نەک تەنها یەک بانک چونکە هەموو بانکەکان لەلایەکەوە ڕەبتی ناشنال سویچن هەموو کۆمپانیایەکانی و فینتێکیش لەلایەکی ترەوە نفسی ڕەبتی نفسی سویچن بۆیە تۆ وەکو کۆمپانیایەکی مۆبایل مەنی با بڵێن دەتوانێت ئەکسزی هەموو بانکەکان بکەیت ینی خەتواتی باشیش دانرایە ینی هاوێژدرای لە لای بانکی مرکزیەوە بایدوەی ینی هەندێک مەخاوەلایە و حالیان تستی شەیە کە ئەو شەریکانە لەگەر هەندێک بانکی تستی دەکەنەوە ترانزاکشنی لەبین یەکتر دەگوازنەوە بەڵام لە حاڵەتی تستیە هێشتا نەچویتە لایڤ و بەکار نایە
دەسا
سەرچاوە
بڵێ
کۆمیشنی ترانسفێری مابینی بانکەکان چۆن دەبێ میژەر وەکو هاوڵاتیەک با پرسیار بکەم لە مۆزوع
کۆمیشنەکە هێشتا قسەی لەسەر نەکرێ کاکراوەرە بەس ئەوەی کە دەیزانین شتەکان ئۆتۆمەی دەبێت باسی
بەدڵنیایی و فری نابێت ئەمن لە
فری نابێ نافری نابێ یەکیت فری نابێ
زۆر سپاس بۆ بینەرەکانمان و هەروە یەکە بەیەکەتان مامۆستاوارە دکتۆر بەیار ئەن کاکڕەوەز زۆر خۆشحاڵ بووم سەقفەکە نەکەوێ بەسەرمانە زۆر سپاس بۆ ئەو زانیاریانەی کامڕۆ بە ئێمەتان بەخشی و هیوادارم بینەرانیش سوودیان لێبینی بێت کاتێکی خۆش بۆ هەموو لایەک سپاس